Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Sarah Bessel, Deputy Director of the Human Trafficking Legal Center. We'll give maybe 1 or 2 minutes for attendees to sign on, and then we'll get started. Thanks all. And you're currently in listen-only mode, but during the question and answer period, we'll open up the floor for questions. And for those of you on your computer, you should be able to see slides. For those of you who are patching in by phone, we can distribute the slides afterwards, so don't worry. All right, and we'll give it about 1 more minute. And of course, you're in listen-only mode right now, but if you have any questions that pop into your head during the presentation, feel free to pop them in the chat, and I can ask them, or you can pop on and ask them during the Q&A session. And you can chat that to me directly, or as an organizer or a panelist, or you can chat it to the entire audience if you'd like everyone to see. All right, people are rolling in. Great. All right, we're 1 minute past the hour, and as people roll in, they can catch up. But just to begin, good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone joining. Welcome to the inaugural episode of our Voices from the Anti-Trafficking Frontline series, where we feature litigators and their innovative strategic litigation to combat human trafficking. If you're interested in sharing your work on a future episode, please do drop me a line. And an announcement for everyone that our practice guide on remedies for minor victims of sexual exploitation in tourism is now available for download in Burmese, Nepali, and Thai. And you can find those on our publications page on our website. And so today we are thrilled to feature Dornnapha Sukkree, Managing Director of TLCS Legal Advocate and co-founder and policy director of MAST, or the Multi-Stakeholder Initiative for Accountable Supply Chain of Thai Fisheries. And Dorna works on a pro bono basis to represent victims of sex and labor trafficking to secure criminal convictions as a co-plaintiff with a prosecutor and victim compensation. And Dorna also works to eradicate modern day slavery from business supply chains in Southeast Asia, starting with Thai fisheries. And today we will hear more about Dorna's work securing criminal restitution in sexual exploitation of children in tourism cases, best practices for pursuing damages in foreign jurisdictions, and more litigation updates. And Dorna is joining us by phone due to some computer update difficulties. So we won't be able to see Dorna, but we will hear her. So Dorna, please take it away.
Okay, thank you everyone, and thank you for having me. So thank you for the introduction. First of all, I would like to share you how I get into the human trafficking things that start doing 5 years ago and continue doing, and it's put, I have passion to do this, and I think, I want to share how I work, because I'm not a full-time human rights lawyer. I have a law firm. I do some business at TLCS Legal Advocate, and I also 5 years ago, because Thailand have a problem about human trafficking in the fishing industry. At that time, I started to do an initiative called MAST that Sarah there talk about. And later on, I worked with Liberty Chair for the Legal Impact Hub. So that's why I engage more for represent victims. So next slide, please. Sarah, next slide, please. Yep. Next slide. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So after I working for human trafficking for a while, and in the first 2 years, mostly I work in like policy advocacy, stakeholder engagements. From time to time, I do for like training for NGO to do work, and we at the time at the 5 years ago, we have a TIP report. We have international pressure, Thailand under the treaty of the TIP report, US TIP report, and also IUU fishing. At the time, we have a lot of pressure, and at the moment, it seems like shameful for the country, but it's good for people who work on that, because the government very open to listen to NGO, listen to everyone involved, stakeholders and everything. So because of the work 2 or 3 years with everyone get involved, and we can move some policy, we can change the law. I can say that right now Thailand have a very good framework for human trafficking in terms of persecution and protection of victims. But somehow when a law change and practice change, policy change, we need to test the law or test the system, how it's work well or not. And for the last 3 years, I'm start doing represent victims for case, because I get funding from Litigation to do the work on this. I can hire a lawyer to work full time on this, and but we have limited resources, so that's why we said to NGO or anyone to want us to represent them or represent victims that we would like to take cases that can make impact or can less awareness, more policy or other things. So in my point of view, I will do it in 2 ways. So the first thing, I think what important the most is witness preparation and also victim compensation. In Thailand, the concept of witness preparation is not well established, because in the court system we have the law, the ethical and everything that do not teach the victims or the witness to speak, and a lot of accusation that NGO taught victim to speak or blah blah blah, a lot of things. So the concept of witness preparation in Thailand is not well established, but somehow I think it's very important, because next slide please.
Yes.
So, yes, because when you see cases in the past few years, you can see that the survivors testify in court is not working. We have a big case that even the court rendered the conviction, but when you see that in the court decision, you can see that the court did not believe the victims at all, because victims or survivors on that case, I think that case have 100 or something, they trembling, they cannot confront the perpetrator in court, and they melt down in court. But in that case, they have other evidence to support that, so it's conviction. All other case, in the fishing case, when have victim testify in court and they don't know what to do, they too much exaggerated about working condition. They said they work about 20 hours a day every single day, and the defense lawyer came in and have people in their peer to rebut them. So that case is end up not so well. So that's how I think why witness preparation is important, because somehow, but I have to say that somehow the system that we work for policy advocacy, we have the law change for human trafficking. Thailand changed from the system from adversary system to inquisitorial system. That means the witness belong to the judge. So the judge asks question for the witness. So it's not going to be any aggressive question from the defense lawyer anymore. But somehow we need to focus on how to make it better in order to, because the survivor victims might be only one who know the facts of the case, and it's quite important, even though we have to help them to be, be credible in the court of law. Next, please.
Yes.
Next slide, please. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So first case I would like to talk about is tech sectorism. We handled this case 2 years ago. An NGO reached out to us, and we work with law enforcement closely. This case is about 2 homeless boys. They provide sexual services for a foreigner, and this foreigner is like he lived double life. He have a good grandfather in their home country, and he came into like have a sexual relationship with Thai boys every year for the past 10 years. So when we call in to help to listen to boy, we help not for the criminal case. We file a civil claim in the criminal case because if a typical human trafficking case, the prosecutor have the duty to file a civil claim for them asking for compensation. That's how the Thai law works. But in the sex tourism, child exploitation is not in that degree. So somehow the survivor need to have a legal representation in order to make a civil claim on that. So we came in to help with them. This case, no one ever done before because it's homeless guy. Mostly it's easy when the boy have parents, have legal guardian. But when he's 17 or 19, 19 is a typical one age for Thailand because the law always protect victims or witness under 18. When you turn 18, you're not adult. You cannot sign paperwork for appoint lawyer or another thing because you're not legally adult. So that's why we need to challenge first how to get him a legal guardian in order to ask for compensation because he's not adult, he cannot ask compensation for their own. So at that time we have to approach the court in order to file a motion on that. Once we succeed on that, we help them to prepare the witness. My team, we appoint 3 lawyers on this because this boy, the lawyer for the half that I hire to do full time is woman, so it's not appropriate for them. So I hire another lawyer who's a male lawyer to do that work so they can get connected and talk because somehow even we file for compensation, we need to know more about story and so we can do more. At that time, we try to help them prepare because somehow I think preparedness is key important thing to do. And luckily that I'm glad that we did prepare the witness not only for the civil claim but also the story, bring back their memory, how they do what they do, and help them to go through the process because even we said that we're gonna represent them about civil claim only. The boys, wondering how it might be, in court, how it's like, and what he do or should do. So that's why we talk about. And I'm so glad that we did prepare them because for the typical Thai, they not prepare the witness. When the prosecutor in this case, they prepare for the boys to speak on criminal case only to hand him over a piece of paper and said, okay, just read that and I will ask, on that point. And it turned out that the boy cannot leave because he not go to school. He homeless, he not go to school, so he cannot leave. And that case, we got that we, help them to prepare that. And for this case, the court did not provide, the trial court did not get compensation for the boy because somehow he's like child prostitute and get him zero. That's why we fought in the appeal court because the point that we fought that I just believe that he was, engaged in these sexual services, and when he was 12 or 14 is too young, and we think that the consent of the boys, the minors, is irrelevant. So it cannot, legally they cannot implicate it to the crime as the court said. So we fought in the appeal court and we won. The court gave them, gave them some money, but the principle that we fought for is, well established, upheld by the appellate court. Next slide, please.
Sure.
Okay. And for other case, we work with is labor trafficking in fishing boat. This case we have 30 people, but this time we found because we want to help people with this, and at that time we want to take the system when the victims in the shelter or government shelter, how it be, because we advocate for advance testimony in order to shorten the period that the victims in the government shelter, in order to them to get back to work, and also for labor trafficking. It's different from sex trafficking. They want to go back to work. They want money to send back home, and so we represent them. But something that we found in this case is quite interesting. We cannot access to the victims in the government shelter. I mean, not in the term as I am a defender attorney. So when my client in jail, I can access them. I can talk to them in private. I can, go in Monday to Friday in order to meet them anytime. But for the victims is in different angle. They're not incarcerated. They're in government shelter for protection. But when we ask to meet them as a legal representative of this victim in order to consult with our clients like this, we have to submit a letter to the permanent secretary. It took us 6 months before we can meet them. We could meet them on the first time, and that's the last time that we met them before they repatriated. After we met them and the first time, and we found out that a lot of things happened so fast, and we did not get notice when they were taken to the court in order to provide advance testimony. We found out that later that they just reported home, and 4 of them reached back to us when they found out that they have the court order for compensation. They're just wondering how they can get the compensation. And in that case, I found that when the victims in the government shelter, even the better for them in terms of short term in the shelter, 6 to 8 months, but still very hard for them to get access to justice because they don't have access to lawyer. And sometimes it's hard for us to talk to them privately. So how can we advise them something? How we can let them speak in front of in confidence with us as a lawyer and clients? That's how I in this case. So we learn about that. Next slide, please.
Sure.
So this case is about forced labor, but the thing is forced labor just enacted into the law in Thailand last year. So even it might not in the degree of forced labor, in the degree of labor trafficking, but it might be forced labor. But the law is just enacted. Is like the matter of whether it's it's criminal case or is some difficulty on that. In this case, the victims not in the government shelter, but in the NGO shelter. As you know that in Thailand, as I said in the beginning, the concept of preparedness is quite not well established in Thailand. Even we can get access to our clients easily, and we can ask for a meeting. Somehow they want us to limit it, in order to protect, in order to prevent us to speak something that might traumatize the survivor. And also we're not allowed to speak with her in private. Always have a social worker, even she's 20 right now, but it's still better than victims in the government shelter. This case still ongoing. Not sure how it's go because it's like the tricky one because the law is the new law, and we cannot prosecute for human trafficking. So this case is still going. Okay, for the next slide, please.
Sure.
The next thing we do is for execution of the compensation. I would like to share with you about the compensation award that the court ordered to the victim. Along the way, when you a survivor identify as a victim of trafficking, they get compensation from the government fund. It's called Justice Fund and Human Trafficking Fund. So they provide you to get you whole, like for cost of living or other things for medical, and that you claim as a victim of trafficking. And in the lawsuit, they can have like compensation or restitution from the defendant, from the perpetrator. And because of policy advocacy about a lot of things happen because of the work on when Thailand was on tier T of the TIP report. For compensation, the law said it's the duty of the Department of Social Development and Human Security to execute the court order on behalf of the victims. And the law said like this, and we get involved because we would like to test the law whether it works. Because somehow, as a lawyer, I found that it's very hard to execute the court order on compensation, no matter you have resources or other things. I would like to get involved because I would like to know their capacity and whether they have weapon more than us, because somehow we as a lawyer we know how to search, to trace the property, but I must say that we get involved in 2 or 3 cases in order to find the property for seize and confiscate in order to pay for the victims. It's not working. Most of them resolve the money, we cannot find anything. So we work with we get into a meeting with Department of Social Development to see what we're doing. It's quite, they not have expertise, but they still try to their best to do things. But they said to us directly that they cannot do anything with to chase money aboard, because at that time we have Uganda cases concern sex trafficking is 18 cases that in their hand. So I work with NGO on this case, on 2 cases, and we try to chase the money in Uganda and work with NGO in Uganda in order to execute Thai court order in Uganda. Luckily, that in Uganda they have a law to recognize the foreign court judgment on the civil claim. And also, I help with another case is it should have been forced labor, but it's happened years before the law enacted. So it's only ruled as a labor violation, and the court order compensation is about $50,000 US for the guy, our client, to do that. This case I'm not involved at the beginning, but I refer by an NGO who helped this guy because he is a stated person in the northern of Thailand, and continue working for an American lawyer who owned a furniture company in the north part of Thailand. And he deduct money every since 4 or 5 years during the period of working. That's why he cannot leave, because a lot of money was cut and he cannot get back. So the court ordered him to pay back the salary that he deduct during the period of employment. And they went into like negotiation several times, and at the end when the court ordered, the American lawyer went back to Georgia. So in this case we work with lawyer network, pro bono lawyer network in the US in order to file the claim. We submit the paperwork. I think it's just right before the COVID-19, and I do some affidavit in order to prove to the court that this case is, to explain as a Thai lawyer, I explained to the court in the US that this case is, under the competent court of jurisdiction, is final, conclusive, and if we want to enforce Georgia court's order in Thailand, it can be. So it's under the reciprocity. That's how we work with. We file the paperwork, and it's maybe take some time. Yeah, we just start doing it. Yeah, and all that is I work on. Sarah, back to you.
Yes. Oh, back to me. Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed the last one. Okay. Thank you so much, Dorna. This is a lot of work that you're doing. Let me unmute. Oh, unmute. So I'm, oh, 1 second. Oh, I can't. Sorry, everyone, I'm having some technical difficulties. While I'm working to unmute everyone, Dorna, I was struck by the fact that you said that that the compensation orders have been going up, but they're not being you can't actually get the compensation. And so what is the role of the government in this? You said they don't have the capacity, but is there anything that Thai lawyers can do to file a case or pressure the government to actually have the prosecutor's office work hand in hand with you to track down these judgments?
I think, sorry, I have to say that to have them to have the government to handle the execution order on behalf of the victim is one victory for the victims. But if you say the nature of the work on civil claim in Thailand, it's hard to get money no matter who you are, even you private lawyer or who you are the government, unless it's department, the Office of Anti-Money Laundering. They have superpower in order to trace the money. So it's the first step that the government get involved in order to, instead of having the victims to hire a lawyer to do this work for them, because somehow you have to, it's like a new case on execution of that. You have to go to the court and ask for the cease order, and you have to work a lot of things. So that definitely that you need lawyer, right? In when the law changed to have the Ministry of Social Development to do this on behalf of the victims instead of in order to hire a lawyer, it's good thing that like you have a state lawyer to help them do this, but he will face the same things as we all do. So because you chase the money, they hire the money, who gonna be, right? So at the end, we're gonna see that we not get money for the victims. I just think that we start talking that instead of having to, have a victory for everyone, higher amount of the compensation, and then like a piece of paper, why don't we, have the government that have a very good function on that? We advocate for, we start talking about it by involve the Office of Anti-Money Laundering, and is advocate for having them to set some funding. When you get the court order, we can go to them and cash out the money, and the government will do the work internally in order to source money, no matter what. Or even when the case going on, this typical case like human trafficking is predicate offenses under the anti-money laundering law, so they can use their function to seize money at the beginning. So that means it's more effective on that. It's a long way to go, and when we do this work, we can have something to say to support that. It might be another step in order to get the victims compensation they deserve.
Yeah, definitely a long way to go in many aspects. I have a question in from Chloe Sutter on your case involving the young boys. And Chloe asks a multi-part question: were the boys homeless when the abuse started, or were they under the care of the state or some kind of institution or orphanage? And also, what was the home country of the perpetrator? And did law enforcement or the consulate from that country get involved at all?
The perpetrator is Canadian. The government get involved, and I think this case is quite a big operation between law enforcement between Thailand and Canadian. It's a very big operation. When they arrest this guy, they found a lot of child porn, and the boys is homeless when he was 12 and 14. They have no parents. Because they not go to school at the time. I think they want money to pay for computer games. So, and they start doing it by this guy, because one boy have it's like regular customer for this guy, right? He was there, and it's not like the case it's not like sexual intercourse, but they show them about Thai porn and ask them to do exactly what in the movie, that kind of thing. So the child is Thai, not in the government, but they from time to time they stay at a shelter of an NGO shelter, but not stay for a long time. Comes and go. And in this case, we asked the director of the shelter to represent them as a legal guardian. Yeah.
Okay. And as a follow-up to Chloe's question, you had mentioned that it was too small of amount to pursue the compensation in Canada. So was there any discussion? Was there any attempt to try and pursue that compensation order in Canada against him?
I don't have any connection to lawyer in Canada to do this kind of work. We did not even ask them to pay for that, because we don't have any network of Canada lawyers there. So, and we have US law firm that might have office in Canada. So, but somehow when we look at 50,000, it's like $2,000. So I think, who gonna care to do about this?
Well, we certainly have contacts with Canadian lawyers, and we can help if you'd still like to, if the clients would still like to pursue it. And I think there might also be people on the call and on the network that also have connections, because we know how much
that would be great. That would be great.
Great.
Yeah, that would be great.
And actually, great minds. Two questions from Chloe and Martina as a follow-up. Was there a prosecution in Canada? Did law enforcement in Canada ever get involved?
Yes, because at the time that the court rendered the decision at the trial court, he got 8 months, and he already served 8 months, and he free to go from Thai jail, and law enforcement from Canada picked them up to go back to Canada, because he will be tried on child pornography in Canada. But I did not follow up about that things.
Oh, okay. And two questions have come in on the topic of corporate accountability, and so I'm going to merge the two from Martina and from Alex Au. And so, have all of your compensation claims been only against individuals, or have you had any claims lodged against companies? And where a company has few or no assets, does Thai law allow you to lift the corporate veil to go after the assets of the business owner, or would that be difficult to do?
If you look at the labor trafficking case in a fishing boat, actually the claim is against a company who owned the boat. And in this case, the boat owner and also the company they use IUU fishing. The problem is when we solve the problem about IUU, we increase the high amount of fine for the punishment for fine, right? When you see that in this sentence, you see that they fine 7 million baht for IUU offense. If you not pay fine, the director of this company go to jail for, you know, up to 2 years. If you have money, you will choose to pay fine first, right? And, you know, seize the money to fine, you know. And to my guess, is nothing left for pay for the compensation, because compensation somehow is civil claim. You don't have any penalty on that. So it's you know, when we change something to in order to deter the crime in the IUU fishing higher that level, that means monies go there first and slow on to pay for compensation.
And is it possible, as Alex asked, is it possible to go after the business owner itself, not just the business entity? Have there been examples in other areas of law?
Or for this case, it's typically in this case, for human trafficking, you cannot pursue the business owner, because in Thailand we have, you know, we talk about this too, because the company and the owner, they own the boat and they lend out to captain, and when there's forced labor and something happen in the boat, they, you know, free of problem, because they don't have authority to supervise the captain who lent out. It seems like separating, but for IUU, even you lend out, you have to take responsibility for the IUU. This how it works, but not in terms of human trafficking. And in Thailand, I think for human trafficking, and we done the judicial seminar last year, and we raised this question in, you know, in the perception of judges, how they think about it. It's hard for the concept of corporate responsibility under human trafficking, because somehow you need to prove very hard that the directors or you know, directors or people who the executive know anything about, you know, or order anything about forced labor or human trafficking. So in the eye of you know, of the law and judges, we have perception that how could we hold them accountable unless they, you know, order to do that or have a knowledge of doing that. So it's quite hard for whole company accountability.
Dorna, this is Martina Vandenberg, and first I want to thank you. This is just really remarkable work, and we're so grateful to you for sharing it with the international sort of strategic litigation community. It's wonderful. I have two questions for you. One is, you've mentioned the Office of Money Laundering, and you said that they have sort of superpowers to collect. I'm wondering where that money goes. Does that go to the Thai Treasury, or is it possible to send that money to victims? And then the second question is, you know, in the years that you've been doing this work, what do you see as your greatest litigation success on behalf of an anti-trafficking, on behalf of a trafficking survivor?
For the first question, the money of the Office of Anti-Money Laundering, they cut in half. The first one, you know, the first half go to, we call it anti-money laundering fund, but they use only to deter the crime in anti-money laundering, for training, for other things, and half of them go to the Treasury. We just think that we can push for them having another fund, or get some money to another fund for human trafficking fund, because Thailand, we have human trafficking fund, but in the term of provide victims of compensation, that's state compensation, but not in the way to pay for victim individually. So it's possible that we can have a, you know, change the law in order to set a fund on that and make it happen. But we need some push, a lot of push, and a lot of people to see this thing, because somehow everyone, you know, many people confused about human trafficking fund. And I think they have someone to talk about this. At first, they have a lot of stakeholder engagement, a lot of public public forum to talk about engaging the Office of Anti-Money Laundering. But at the end, they said they're gonna change the law in order to make it happen for individual survivor, but still not happen yet. Yeah. For your second question, for your second question, I have to say that I did not involve much in the human trafficking cases because I think for me personally, I think the system, I always say the system is on side of the survivor, because for the children we have a system that for children to testify in separate room, not confront the witness, and also the inquisitory system that make it a lot easier for survivor in court. Somehow we need some engagement in order to walk them through the process, right? Because when they go to court, everyone fearful, everyone about what might happen to them, or they got arrested or not, or maybe. So for me, is the most concern for me is not to get a conviction in human trafficking, but the thing is what best for them. For the forced labor case that I represent, I think I might have some good opportunity to provide access to justice for the state let go in the forced labor that's ongoing. I try to do this because this case I'm get in at the beginning. In other cases, most of them, like call me for ask some question, because somehow it's like in other cases I involved because like, okay, this out of mandate, is out of scope of work and their organization, but they want to help the victims to the most that they can, so they don't know what to do. They call me, so I'm not involved in the beginning. But this case, I worked in the beginning, and I said that a lot of things happen for this case. She might fail, she might be human trafficking in, for the screening, but at the end, her status gonna revoke as a trafficking. What happened to her? Because being identified of victims is one thing that she can have benefit some from state funds like that, and for the legal status to stay in Thailand legally. And if anything, the prosecutor did not charge with human trafficking, what happened to them? That how we need to get involved in order to be on her side, in order to make the best for her, like this. Right now, I don't have best case yet.
And another question in from on the chat. Can you speak at all to what Thai company law says about the responsibilities of directors? Can a presumption be made that a director knows what's happening in his or her company unless otherwise proven?
It's for the company, the first thing, you don't have the company, because they legal representative of the company. That mean I don't know how to explain that, but the thing is,
Alex, can you pop on and are you able to unmute and ask the question? I hope I did it justice.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, thanks. So my question is this: with trafficking and quite a lot of labor type offenses, it's very common for directors to protest that they knew nothing about what was going on, all the misdeeds of a particular manager or representative of the company. But I think good company law always makes a presumption that if you're a director of the company, you should jolly well know what the hell is going on in your company. And therefore, especially for vile offenses like that, if it is not already the case, it might be good policy advocacy all over the world to try to make it case law that in such situations, it is very much the responsibility of directors to know very well that their company is clean of trafficking and other abuses. Might that be already present in Thai law, this the ability to make such a presumption on, and if not, would that be an idea that's worth pursuing to try to make this case law that directors should be presumed to know what is going on in their companies? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. And unfortunately, in Thai law, it's hard to get the director accountable for what happened down to, you know, in forced labor in their company. They, as you say, they always say they didn't know anything about it. They have like a command, and you know, didn't know that a manager who, you know, forced labor or another thing. It's happened all the time, and it's hard to change the concept of that because they always say that people at the top, because the person who takes responsibility for the company is a director who appear to be legal representative, maybe one or two people on the company. It's hard to get them accountable on when they have like 100 of employees, like that. How the law in Thailand work, and it's hard to change that concept as well. But for I work for you know, to do the supply chain on this thing. The best way to do that, to give force from the size of business. Let the business, you know, let the business say that they want something to create supply chain like this. What always work in Thailand, a lot of things going on in business side, because of I would say in the fishing industry, when you say that the law said you cannot transport, you know, cannot let in the goods in the US, because I think that's about your tariff act, right? You can get in, so you have to make proof of that. They have a lot of things going on when the law says system like that, that you have to prove that your supply chain don't have this. So when the law said like this, it's not something happen. But when the business said you have to clean your supply chain, supplier of supplier of supplier, fair is make it working, very much working. So in terms of corporate responsibility in Thailand, I think it's very hard. It's very hard. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions for Dorna? Oh, there's one in the chat box. Dorna, do you think there is that the U.S. Tariff Act and the banning of imports into the United States, imports made with forced labor, is having any impact on forced labor in Thailand?
Yes, personally, I think that, because when we talk about that, when we advocate, I work for MAS, and we talk about this, because when, you know, I don't know whether I understand it correctly. When something happened at the US side, they're not allowed to, you know, they have accusation that forced labor, that give authority for US authority to check the supply chain or not.
It's essentially the goods are blocked. Any goods made with forced labor can be blocked from coming into U.S. markets, but they can then be sent to other markets.
In order to release that, you have to prove, right? Is in terms of trade remedy or no? You have authority to check their books, or they to.
There, from my understanding, there is an obligation on the part of the supplier to prove that there is no forced labor in their making of their goods in their supply chain.
Yeah, and to your question, for the U.S. Tariff Act is a good one to show. I know a lot of things happen in terms of Thai company. They do some training because they want to show to U.S. Trade partner that they do something in order to prevent trafficking. They allow NGO to get in to provide training for labor, and also like set a system of whistleblowers in order to send message from workers. That a lot of things happen because of from the buyer side said that they want something. That's how it's worked really well in business.
Okay, And another question and I'll combine it with a question that I also had. So the question is, are judges in Thailand well trained on trafficking? And then also to add on to your earlier point in one case example about how witnesses just aren't believed when they give their testimony. So how well trained are judges in Thailand? And then also as a follow on, is there anything that we as a community of litigators can do to assist you in the form of expert reports or trainings of judges to help educate the judicial actors on trafficking?
I think for the judicial thing, they don't like to be trained by others, right? So they have training inside the organization. They're very open when we can feed in information. Like I said that we co-hosted the judicial seminar last time. It's not a training for judges, but a seminar for judges to listen to what already in NGO and work in the field. So we present problems or obstacles and challenges to the judges, and the judges discuss about that. And for training, most of them in Thai judges, they have a internal training or some sort of thing. We can raise question, we can contact them to raise some challenges or other thing, but it's hard to get involved for the training in terms of training, right? But I can say that the judicial system, they have some training about human trafficking, because somehow they have to write a report about the tip report. Yeah.
And a follow-up question coming in, do you find that the courts are receptive to claims from sex trafficking and labor trafficking victims?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, they're very open, and they a lot of sharing happening. In Thailand, they have special division on human trafficking, so they have a specialized judge to handle on case, because of the inquisitorial system. That means we need to have judges who know about the human trafficking nature of the work. So when they separate, the court division on that, and have a special procedure rule on that, and also have a special system on that, things get better in terms of the judges who know more about human trafficking, but somehow they need to be trained directly or indirectly about how to work with victims, with traumatized victims.
And another question coming in, Dorna, how many other lawyers are doing work like this in Thailand? And can you talk a little bit more about your Litigation Impact Hub?
For Legal Impact Hub, I work with LiberShare. We try to run we try to engage lawyers to help them, because somehow human trafficking is a complex issue for lawyers to get involved. I found that many lawyers want to get involved, want to help the victim, but somehow the law is more complex and the system is different from what they're doing. So our idea is to hold like a community of lawyers, of NGOs who provide legal assistance for the survivors. So from time to time we do some called stakeholder engagement. We hold a meeting to talk about this and to provide them. Mostly when we do stakeholder engagement, we get to know each other, building trust. From time to time, you get someone to call you in order to ask for comments or advice or some sort of thing. We have a lot of people. We have other organizations who do a network of pro bono lawyers to do that. PUNET do that, and also a lot of lawyers do that. And NGO, they also have the in-house lawyer to do work. And as I said, somehow in some organization, let's say you have to help sex trafficking, you cannot choose whether the, labor trafficking comes to you or vice versa. That's when we have a legal impact hub, this like a center, they can call in, we can connect others to do that, and we try to fill the gap and help NGO to do work easier and better. That our standpoint to do that, and somehow we represent case. And for example, we do not do it alone. We do it with other lawyers in order to, like learn from the job. For the force that I mentioned earlier, we work with NGO, in-house NGO, because they have a new lawyer in their organization. They want to learn from us, so we join hand and work on this case together. That's how we work, like mentoring, or we try to do the work in order to build capacity of lawyer to help that. And we have a lot of lawyer with good hearts, want to do good work on that, but they need some mentoring, they need some training. Yeah.
Fantastic. And another question coming in from Pompey Banerjee. Are there any government bodies in Thailand that can provide free and quality legal assistance to survivors of human trafficking?
They have we call it justice fund. They give you funding to hire a lawyer. Yeah, they do have that.
Great. That's good to hear, in addition to the NGO lawyers that you're also training. In the last 4 minutes of our hour, are there any other questions? Either you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask, or ask on the chat. And while people are thinking, Dorna, is it what is the best way for people to get in contact with you if they'd like to contact you?
Send me my email, or I'm very open to that. Or you can check website. Our contact is on our website as well. Feel free to send me email.
And this is on TLSC Legal Advocate?
TLCS. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I use Gmail. Donna. Yeah. donor.tlcs@gmail.com.
Great. Okay. And we can include it in the materials in the follow-up. Well, if there are no other questions, I think we can wrap up early. Dorna, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic hour, and I can't think of a better way to launch our new webinar series on Voices from the Anti-Trafficking Litigation Frontlines. So a big web clap for Dorna. Thank you so much. And for those on the call, we'll send out the copy of the recording and the webinar PowerPoint slides after the call. Please do take time to fill out the survey that'll pop up when you leave the webinar. And again, if you're interested in featuring your work or can recommend the work of others, we'd love to feature them on this series. We hope for it to be a long and ongoing series. So please do reach out to us. And Dorna, thank you again so much. Any last words?
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thanks everyone for joining.